What if the most beautiful angel in heaven, created to shine as God's masterpiece, harbored a secret so dark that it could unravel the very fabric of paradise? Picture this: a being so radiant that his light outshone the stars, yet within his flawless heart, a forbidden whisper echoed, a whisper that would ignite a rebellion to shatter eternity. Meet Lucifer, the morning star, whose beauty will captivate you, and whose darkness will terrify you. Dare to discover the untold beginning of his fall, a tale that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about light and shadow. Before darkness existed, before humanity ever set foot on earth, the heavenly realm was a place of absolute perfection, where infinite light and purity reigned supreme. Every angel radiated an immense light and felt deep reverence for their Father, the creator of all, original content, bolded. But among them, one stood out above the rest: Lucifer, known as the morning star. He wasn't just an angel. He was God's masterpiece, a creation forged from the purest light, with a beauty that made even the stars envious. Lucifer was the most intelligent, the most powerful, and the greatest in honor and dignity in the heavens. Everyone admired him. Lucifer was God's most beautiful creation, his masterpiece, original content bolded. But his beauty wasn't merely skin deep. Lucifer possessed a voice like a blazing fire piercing through the darkness, leading the heavenly choir with such majesty that every other angel bowed in reverence. He didn't just sing, he crafted divine symphonies, each note a beam of light cutting through the eternal night, shaking the very foundations of heaven. What happens when perfection becomes a curse? What if the angel who sang the sweetest hymns began to hear a darker melody, one that sang only of his own glory? A chilling truth was taking root in Lucifer's heart, one that would soon cast a shadow over all of heaven. And you won't believe what he did next. Lucifer wasn't just light, he was a guiding flame. The other angels looked at him with eyes full of admiration, as if he were the very embodiment of the perfection God had created. He walked through the heavenly realm with an air of grandeur, his silver wings shimmering like thousands of diamonds, each step sending ripples through the fabric of space. But within that radiant light, a tiny shadow began to form. Despite his unparalleled power, Lucifer felt a strange emptiness, a void that whispered questions he had never dared to ask before. He murmured to himself, "Why must I? The most perfect being remains subservient. Why can't my light shine independently without reflecting anyone else?" Personal perspective. I believe Lucifer wasn't just prideful. He embodied a question we've all asked ourselves. Who could I be if I were free from all rules? But that very question led him down a perilous path, a path where light turns to darkness and perfection becomes a curse. Perhaps Lucifer's greatest tragedy wasn't his fall, but the fact that he never realized how his own beauty was blinding him to the truth. Lucifer wasn't only beautiful, his intelligence was so profound that it left the other angels in awe. He could peer into the mysteries of the cosmos, understanding secrets that even the seraphim, the living flames of heaven, couldn't grasp. But that intellect became a double-edged sword. The more Lucifer looked within himself, the more he became obsessed with his own brilliance. He began to sing songs that no longer praised God but glorified himself instead, each melody a step closer to the abyss. And then, in a moment that would echo through the ages, Lucifer stood before God's throne, his reflection shimmering on the pearl-like surface of heaven. He whispered to himself, "I am more beautiful than the Creator. I deserve to be worshipped." That whisper wasn't just a thought. It was a spark that would soon ignite a firestorm to consume all of paradise. What would you do if you saw your own perfection and believed it surpassed even God? Lucifer's mind began to conjure dreams of a kingdom where he was the center, where angels knelt before him instead of God. He no longer wanted to be a reflection of light. He wanted to be the only source of it. But that dream, as radiant as it seemed, carried a deadly seed: pride. He was unaware that within his heart, a dark flame was silently growing, a flame that pulsed with a hunger for power, ready to consume everything he once stood for. Lucifer didn't act impulsively. He was far too clever for that. He began sowing seeds of doubt with a subtlety that only a being of his intelligence could muster. He approached the seraphim, the living flames, and whispered, "Have you ever thought we deserve more? We are light, so why must our light always serve another?" His words were like a sharp blade, slicing through their loyalty, planting the first seeds of rebellion in their hearts. On an eternal night, as heaven basked in its unending light, Lucifer stood alone on the highest peak of paradise, gazing down at the kingdom he once loved. He spread his wings, their light illuminating entire galaxies, but within that brilliance, a small black shadow began to spread, a shadow that seemed to whisper back to him. He murmured, "If I cannot outshine God, I will create a kingdom of my own, a kingdom where I am the only light." His voice echoed through the heavens and a thunderclap roared, as if heaven itself trembled, sensing the birth of a rebellion that would tear it apart. Personal perspective. I've always thought Lucifer wasn't just a betrayer. He was an angel obsessed with freedom. He didn't want to be evil. He wanted to be himself, to break free from the chains of servitude. But that desire for freedom led him astray, turning him into a symbol of evil. Perhaps deep down, Lucifer felt pain, wrestling with his own soul before fully falling, a pain that made his rebellion all the more tragic. Lucifer continued his subtle rebellion, planting doubts with the finesse of a master manipulator. He didn't openly defy God, not yet. He merely posed small questions, gentle whispers, but they were enough to shake the faith of the other angels. He knew that to achieve his goal, he needed an army, and that army would be forged from the very angels who were once the most loyal to God. And then, in a moment that would echo through eternity, Lucifer stood before a divine mirror, a mirror that reflected the soul itself. He gazed into it, and for the first time he didn't see God's light in his eyes. He saw only himself, an angel more beautiful than God, more powerful than heaven. He smiled, but that smile was chillingly cold, a smile that seemed to freeze the very air around him. "This is the true light," he whispered. And at that moment a small crack appeared on the surface of heaven, a crack that pulsed with a dark energy, whispering back, "You will be the end of paradise." What would happen next? Could Lucifer's rebellion shatter the heavens, or would a greater power rise to stop him? Keep watching to find out, because the darkest twist is yet to come. What if heaven, the realm of eternal light, was a ticking time bomb? A paradise so perfect that its very order could breed rebellion. Imagine a celestial hierarchy where every angel has a divine purpose, yet one among them, a being of unparalleled power, begins to question the very structure that holds heaven together. Lucifer, the morning star, stood at the pinnacle of this divine order. But what dark thoughts were brewing beneath his radiant facade? Step into the heavenly realm and uncover the hidden cracks in its perfection. A secret that will leave you on the edge of your seat. In the celestial expanse, heaven operated under a flawless design, a divine symphony where every note was played in perfect harmony. Heaven is a realm of perfect order, a divine structure where each angel has a mission and purpose to fulfill. Original content, bolded. At the highest tier were the seraphim, celestial beings who burned like living flames, their voices an endless chant of, "Holy, holy is the Lord Almighty." Their fiery presence radiated love and purity, a testament to their unyielding devotion to the Creator. Below them were the cherubim, the guardians of divine wisdom, protectors of the universe's deepest secrets. They stood as an impenetrable shield, repelling any trace of impurity that dared to approach the sacred realm. At the orders closest to earth are the archangels and angels. Archangels like Michael and Gabriel are messengers of decisive moments, warriors who carry the divine message on their swords, and finally the angels closest to humanity. They are the guardians of souls, accompanying us on our journey, ensuring evil doesn't draw near. Original content, bolded. The archangels, such as Michael and Gabriel, were warriors of light. their swords blazing with divine purpose as they delivered God's messages to the cosmos. The angels closest to humanity served as silent protectors, guiding souls through the trials of existence, ensuring that evil could not corrupt what was pure. At the zenith of this celestial hierarchy stood Lucifer, the morning star, a being crafted to embody perfection itself. Lucifer was a being crafted to the measure of perfection. You were anointed as a guardian cherub. You were on the holy mount of God. You walked among the fiery stones. Original content, bolded. As a guardian cherub, Lucifer held a position of immense power, walking among the fiery stones on the holy mount of God, a place where only the most exalted could tread. Lucifer wasn't just beautiful. He was the leader, the beacon other angels followed. His charisma was magnetic, and his presence inspired respect and devotion. Original content, bolded. His presence was a radiant force, a beacon that guided the other angels with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly. But what happens when a leader, revered by all, begins to see flaws in the very order he upholds? What if the angel who walked among fiery stones started to feel the heat of his own ambition burning brighter than his devotion? A storm was brewing in Lucifer's heart, one that could shatter the divine symphony of heaven forever. Lucifer's role was not merely ceremonial. He was the conductor of heaven's divine choir, his voice a blazing flame that illuminated the darkness. Lucifer organized the heavenly choirs, directing praises to the Creator with fervor and passion. His voice was like a flame in the darkness, a radiance guiding them in their songs and prayers. Original content, bolded. Every note he sang reverberated through the celestial halls, a melody so powerful that it seemed to hold the very fabric of heaven together. The seraphim and cherubim hung on his every word, their fiery forms flickering in awe as he led them in worship. Even Michael, the great warrior archangel, looked upon Lucifer with a quiet reverence, his sword lowered in the presence of such divine brilliance. Yet beneath this facade of perfection, a subtle discord was beginning to emerge. Lucifer's charisma, once a unifying force, started to take on a different tone. As he walked among the fiery stones, his thoughts began to drift from his divine purpose. He gazed upon the seraphim, their endless chants echoing through the heavens, and the question formed in his mind: why must we sing only for the Creator? Why can't our songs glorify the light within us? It was a dangerous thought, one that seemed innocent at first but carried the weight of rebellion. Personal perspective. I've always found the heavenly hierarchy fascinating, a system so perfect that it seems unbreakable. But perfection can be a double-edged sword. Lucifer, as the pinnacle of this order, was both its greatest strength and its greatest weakness. His role as a leader gave him power, but it also gave him the perspective to see the flaws in the system, flaws that others were too devoted to notice. Perhaps his rebellion wasn't just about pride. Maybe it was about a longing for something more, a desire to redefine what perfection could mean. Lucifer's influence over the other angels grew stronger with each passing moment. His voice, once a source of unity, now carried an undertone of defiance. He began to speak to the cherubim in hushed tones, his words dripping with a subtle venom. We are the guardians of wisdom, yet we are bound to serve. Don't you ever wonder what it would be like to wield our knowledge for ourselves? The cherubim, stoic and unwavering, felt a flicker of doubt for the first time, their shields of purity trembling under the weight of Lucifer's words. And then, in a moment that froze the heavens, Lucifer stood atop the holy mount of God, the fiery stones beneath his feet glowing with a sinister crimson hue. He raised his voice, not in praise, but in a defiant roar that shattered the celestial silence. If we are perfect, why must we bow to another? Why can't we be the creators of our own destiny? The fiery stones erupted in black flames, and a chilling voice, not his own, whispered back from the abyss: "You already are." A violent tremor shook the realm as if heaven itself screamed in terror. Lucifer's subtle rebellion was only the beginning. He knew that to challenge the divine order, he needed more than words. He needed followers. And so, he turned his gaze to the seraphim and cherubim, the most powerful beings in heaven, and began to weave a web of doubt that would ensnare even the most devoted. His charisma, once a light of unity, was now a weapon of division, and heaven's perfect order began to show its first signs of fracture. What would happen when the morning star, heaven's greatest leader, turned his light against the very creator he was meant to serve? Could the divine order withstand the weight of Lucifer's ambition, or would it crumble under the pressure of his defiance? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial saga will reveal a betrayal so shocking that it will change the course of eternity. A betrayal that even the angels couldn't foresee. What if the most radiant angel in heaven, a being of perfection, was destined to become the architect of his own destruction? Picture this: Lucifer, the morning star, standing at the pinnacle of celestial glory, yet within his flawless heart, a single seed of pride begins to grow, a seed that will soon bloom into a rebellion so catastrophic that it will shake the very foundations of eternity. How could a creature so perfect fall so far? Dive into the chilling transformation of Lucifer's heart and uncover the moment when light turned to darkness, a moment that will leave you questioning the true cost of pride. Lucifer had once been the epitome of divine perfection, a being crafted to reflect the Creator's glory in its purest form. God hadn't created evil but something perfect, yet Lucifer, blinded by his own brilliance, let pride grow in his heart. Original content, bolded. His brilliance, once a beacon of unity, became a mirror that reflected only his own image. He gazed upon his radiant wings, his voice that could summon celestial symphonies, and his intellect that unraveled the mysteries of the cosmos. And, in that reflection, a dangerous thought took root. I am perfection incarnate, why should I serve another? The Bible tells us how his fall began. Your heart became proud on account of your beauty, and you corrupted your wisdom because of your splendor. Original content, bolded. What had once been his greatest gifts, his beauty and wisdom, became the very instruments of his downfall. What was once his gift became his downfall. The beauty all admired turned into the source of his ruin, and the wisdom that inspired others became the weapon of his self-destruction. Original content, bolded. His beauty, which had once inspired awe in the seraphim and cherubim, now fueled a growing arrogance. His wisdom, which had once illuminated the heavens, now twisted into a tool for self-glorification. But what happens when pride takes root in a heart that was meant to be pure? What if the angel who once sang the Creator's praises began to compose a hymn for himself, a hymn that would echo with the sound of rebellion? A darkness was stirring within Lucifer, and it was about to unleash a storm that heaven had never seen before. Lucifer's pride grew like a hidden fire, smoldering beneath his radiant exterior. His desire for glory consumed him like a hidden fire. It slowly destroyed him. Original content, bolded. He no longer saw himself as a servant of the Creator, but as a being worthy of worship. He walked among the fiery stones of the holy mount of God, his silver wings casting a glow that rivaled the stars, and with each step his thoughts grew darker. He began to envision a throne of his own, a throne that would tower above the heavens, above the very stars of God. Pride consumed him. He wanted to ascend beyond his place, to raise his throne above God's stars in his heart. He said, I will ascend to the heavens, I will raise my throne above the stars of God. Original content, bolded. His ambition was no longer a whisper. It was a roaring flame that burned away the last vestiges of his devotion. Lucifer stood atop the celestial peak, his eyes blazing with a newfound defiance, and declared to himself, I am the true light. I will be the god of my own realm. Personal perspective. I've always found Lucifer's fall to be a haunting reminder of the dangers of pride. We often think of pride as a minor flaw, but for Lucifer, it was a poison that seeped into every part of his being. His beauty and wisdom, which should have been a reflection of God's glory, became a mirror for his own ego. I wonder if Lucifer ever hesitated, if he ever felt a pang of doubt as he stood on the brink of rebellion, or if his pride had already consumed him so completely that he could no longer see the light he was meant to serve. Lucifer's transformation was not sudden. It was a gradual descent, a slow poisoning of his once pure heart. He began to distance himself from the heavenly choir, his voice no longer leading the seraphim in praise, but instead weaving melodies of self-adulation. The other angels noticed the change, a subtle shift in his demeanor, a coldness in his gaze that had never been there before. The cherubim, once his steadfast allies, felt a chill as he passed, as if the light they had once revered was now tinged with shadow. And then, in a moment that would mark the beginning of the end, Lucifer stood before the throne of God, his wings spread wide, their light casting an ominous glow across the celestial halls. He raised his voice, not in worship, but in a declaration that sent shockwaves through heaven. I will ascend above the stars, I will be the light that all worship. At that instant, a bolt of lightning tore through the heavens, and a voice, not his own, echoed from the abyss. You have chosen your path, morning star. The ground beneath him trembled, and the light in his eyes flickered, as if the very essence of heaven was rejecting him. The rebellion had begun, and then the heavens shook. Rebellion erupted and peace shattered like a fragile glass, original content bolded. The once harmonious realm of light was now a battleground, the divine order fractured by Lucifer's defiance. Jesus himself, in a chilling testimony, said, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven, original content bolded, a vision that marked the catastrophic fall of the morning star. In an instant, Lucifer was cast into the abyss, banished from the light that had been his home. His glory faded, and his splendor was buried in darkness. The morning star was cut down, the bright celestial body extinguished, original content bolded. The angel who had once been the pinnacle of perfection was now a fallen star, his light snuffed, out by the very pride that had once made him shine. But how could this have happened? How could the brightest angel in heaven fall so far, so fast? What unseen force whispered to Lucifer from the abyss, sealing his fate with those chilling words? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will reveal the shocking truth behind Lucifer's fall. A truth that will leave you questioning the very nature of light and darkness. What if the brightest star in heaven was already on a collision course with darkness, even as the Creator extended a hand to save him? Imagine Lucifer, the morning star, standing at the crossroads of divinity and rebellion, his heart torn between the light he was meant to reflect and the shadow he was beginning to cast. As heaven's perfect harmony begins to falter, a chilling question emerges. Could even God's infinite love stop the descent of an angel consumed by his own brilliance? Uncover the moment when Lucifer's soul began to fracture. A moment so haunting that it will leave you trembling with anticipation for what comes next. Lucifer's story is one shrouded in mystery, his presence in sacred texts as enigmatic as the rebellion he would come to lead. Lucifer in the Holy Scriptures, though Lucifer's influence is immense, he is seldom mentioned in sacred texts. Why does a being with such worldly impact appear so little? Original content, bolded. His tale, fragmented and symbolic, is pieced together from scattered passages in the Bible, woven with deeper insights from other sources. This video is based on the Bible but also on additional sources, primarily the book History of the Angelic World by Father Jose Antonio Fortea, also on texts by St. Augustine, where Lucifer represents the desire to rise above his creator, original, content bolded. St. Augustine paints Lucifer as a being blinded by his own light, a celestial figure whose desire to equal God would lead to his exile, a lesson etched into the annals of eternity. At first, it was a barely perceptible spark of fleeting thought. Lucifer wondered to himself, what if my light could shine brighter? What if my glory didn't always need to serve another? Original content bolded. That spark, so small it seemed harmless, ignited a firestorm within Lucifer's heart. He stood atop the holy mount of God, his silver wings shimmering in the celestial light, and gazed upon the harmonious realm below. The seraphim chanted their endless praises, the cherubim guarded their sacred secrets, and the archangels stood ready to deliver divine messages. But Lucifer's thoughts were no longer aligned with this divine order. He whispered to himself, what if my light could outshine even the creators? What if I could be the one praised, the one worshipped? What happens when an angel begins to question the very purpose of his existence? What if the morning star, once the beacon of heaven's choir, starts to hear a darker melody, one that sings of power, glory, and defiance? A sinister transformation was taking root in Lucifer's soul, and heaven was about to feel its first tremor of discord. Lucifer's descent into darkness was subtle, a gradual unraveling of the perfection he once embodied. These were small questions, almost invisible, but like seeds they took root and grew in the silence of his thoughts. Original content, bolded. Each question planted a seed of doubt. Each seed sprouted into a vision of grandeur. He imagined himself seated on a throne of light, the seraphim and cherubim bowing before him, their chants no longer for the Creator, but for him alone. With every duty he performed, leading the heavenly choir, walking among the fiery stones, the voice inside him grew louder, more insistent. You are the true light, you deserve more. Meanwhile, heaven remained in perfect harmony. Though something in Lucifer became more distant each day, the angels began to notice his change. He became introspective, enigmatic, original content, bolded. The once radiant morning star now carried a shadow in his gaze, a coldness that sent shivers through the celestial ranks. The seraphim, their fiery forms flickering with unease, whispered among themselves as Lucifer's voice grew silent in their hymns. The cherubim, guardians of divine wisdom, felt a chill as he passed, sensing a storm brewing beneath his flawless exterior. Gabriel approached him one day. He said, "Lucifer, brother, what burden weighs on your heart? Your light grows restless." Lucifer looked at him and replied, "There are things even we cannot understand, dear Gabriel." Original content bolded. Gabriel, the messenger of God, stood before Lucifer with concern etched into his radiant features. But Lucifer's reply was a veil, hiding the tempest within. Gabriel felt a chill, an unease that he couldn't shake, as Lucifer averted his gaze, his eyes now reflecting a darkness that had never been there before. Personal perspective. I find Lucifer's growing distance to be a tragic reflection of how even the most divine beings can lose their way. His questions, "What if my light could shine brighter?" echo a universal struggle, the desire for autonomy, for recognition. But what makes Lucifer's story so haunting is how these questions, seemingly innocent, became the seeds of his downfall. I wonder if Gabriel sensed the depth of Lucifer's turmoil, or if he, like the rest of heaven, was too blinded by Lucifer's brilliance to see the darkness taking hold. Lucifer's rebellion was no longer a mere thought. It was a living force, growing with each passing moment. Day by day, Lucifer began to neglect his duties. His voice, once leader of the heavenly choir, grew silent. Original content, bolded. The heavenly choir, once a symphony of divine praise, now faltered without its conductor. The other angels felt his absence like a void in the celestial firmament, as if a star had vanished from the sky. In praise gatherings where he once stood first, he now attended half-heartedly, gazing upward with a mix of pride and resentment. Original content, bolded. His once vibrant presence was now a hollow shell, his eyes fixed on the heavens, not in reverence but in defiance, as he envisioned a realm where he was the ultimate light. And then, in a moment that would chill the heavens to its core, Lucifer stood alone on the holy mount, the fiery stones beneath him pulsing with an unnatural energy. He raised his hands to the sky, his voice a whisper that carried the weight of eternity. "I will be the light that outshines all others." At that instant, the fiery stones cracked, a dark mist rising from their depths, and a voice, not his own, echoed through the heavens. "Your light will lead to your fall." The celestial realm trembled, as if heaven itself knew that the morning star was on the brink of an irreversible descent. The Creator, in his infinite wisdom and love, saw the storm brewing in Lucifer's heart. He called to his most radiant creation, his voice a gentle plea. "Lucifer, my son, turn back before the darkness consumes you." But Lucifer, now too far gone, turned away, his heart hardened by pride. Heaven's perfect harmony was unraveling, and the morning star was at the center of the chaos. What would happen when Lucifer, heaven's brightest star, fully embraced the darkness within? Could God's warning reach him in time, or was his fate already sealed by the shadows he had unleashed? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial saga will reveal a confrontation so intense that it will shake the very foundations of heaven. A confrontation that will decide the fate of the morning star forever. What if the brightest angel in heaven, given the gift of free will, used it to defy the very creator who loved him? Imagine Lucifer, the morning star, standing at the edge of rebellion, his once pure light now flickering with the flames of ambition. As heaven's harmony begins to crack, a divine warning echoes through the celestial halls. But will it be enough to stop an angel who has already tasted the forbidden fruit of pride? Witness the pivotal moment when Lucifer makes his fateful choice, a moment so charged with tension that it will leave you breathless, wondering if paradise can ever be the same again. Lucifer's descent into darkness was no longer a mere whisper. It was a storm brewing in the heart of heaven's most radiant angel. In praise gatherings where he once stood first, he now attended half-heartedly, gazing upward with a mix of pride and resentment. Original content bolded. The celestial halls, once filled with the harmonious chants of the seraphim and the radiant presence of the cherubim, now felt an eerie stillness whenever Lucifer was near. His voice, which had once led the heavenly choir in divine symphonies, was now silent, his eyes fixed on the heavens not in worship but in defiance. The other angels watched in quiet unease, sensing a rift growing in the fabric of paradise. Heaven had clear rules, but no chains. God had given each angel the freedom to love and serve in their perfection. They also possessed the gift of free will, original content bolded. This gift, a testament to the Creator's infinite love, allowed the angels to choose their path, to love and serve in harmony, or to stray into the shadows of their own desires. For Lucifer, this freedom became a double-edged sword. As Lucifer wrestled between his light and shadow, the angels around him began to sense something strange. The tension of his choice, original content, bolded. The seraphim, their fiery forms flickering with unease, whispered among themselves as they felt the weight of Lucifer's growing defiance. The cherubim, guardians of divine wisdom, cast wary glances as the morning star's light began to take on a darker hue. Some, dazzled by his greatness, started to listen to his voice with new ears, following him silently as if his light could lead them to another destiny. Original content bolded. Lucifer's charisma, once a unifying force, now became a siren's call, drawing the most impressionable angels into his orbit. They followed him not with words but with their eyes, their hearts captivated by the promise of a new order, a realm where Lucifer's light would reign supreme. What happens when the gift of free will becomes a weapon of rebellion? What if the angel who once led heaven's choir begins to sing a song of defiance? A song that threatens to unravel the very fabric of paradise. A storm was gathering in heaven and Lucifer was at its center, his light now a beacon of chaos. The tension in heaven reached a breaking point when a cherub, one of Lucifer's closest allies, could no longer ignore the change in his leader. One of the cherubim, noticing his change, approached him once and asked Lucifer, "Do you no longer find joy in singing?" Lucifer replied with a cold smile, "I've found other pursuits. Perhaps there's something beyond what we've known." Original content bolded. The cherub stepped back, a chill running through his celestial form, as Lucifer's cold smile sent a shiver through the air. That smile, devoid of warmth, was a glimpse into the abyss that now stirred within the morning star. A glimpse that hinted at a destiny far darker than any angel could imagine. Lucifer's decision was no longer a question. It was a certainty. Then the morning star made his decision. The spark within him became a flame, and the flame of fire. I will ascend above the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. Original content bolded. His voice, once a melody of praise, now carried the weight of rebellion as he stood atop the holy mount of God. His silver wings spread wide, their light casting an ominous glow across the celestial realm. The fiery stones beneath him pulsed with a dark energy, as if resonating with his defiance, and the air grew heavy with the scent of impending chaos. Personal perspective. I find Lucifer's choice to be a haunting reflection of the power of free will. We often take this gift for granted, but for Lucifer, it was the key to his rebellion. A rebellion born not from malice, but from a desire to be more than what he was created to be. I wonder if Lucifer felt a moment of doubt as he made his fateful decision, or if the flames of ambition had already burned away any trace of the angel he once was. His cold smile to the cherub, to me, is a chilling reminder that even the most radiant beings can fall when they let pride guide their choices. The Creator, in his infinite wisdom, saw the path Lucifer was taking. He called out to his wayward son, his voice a gentle yet powerful warning. "Lucifer, my son, your light was meant to reflect my glory, not to eclipse it. Turn back before the shadows consume you." But Lucifer, now fully consumed by the flames of ambition, turned away, his heart hardened by the pride that had taken root. That night his radiance changed, no longer the light of praise, but the blaze of ambition. Paradise so perfect, so full of peace, felt the first tremor of rebellion. Original. Content bolded. The celestial realm, once a sanctuary of harmony, now trembled as the morning star's light transformed into a blazing inferno of defiance. The seraphim ceased their chants, their fiery forms dimming in fear, while the cherubim tightened their grip on their shields, sensing the storm that was about to break. A dark mist rose from the fiery stones, swirling around Lucifer like a shroud, and a voice, not his own, whispered from the abyss, "You have ignited the flames of your own destruction." What would happen when heaven's brightest star fully embraced the blaze of ambition? Could the Creator's warning pierce through the darkness that now enveloped Lucifer? Or had the morning star already crossed a line from which there was no return? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will unveil a rebellion so explosive that it will shatter the heavens. A rebellion that will change the course of eternity forever. What if the most charismatic angel in heaven, a beacon of divine light, used his unparalleled influence to sow the seeds of a rebellion that would shatter eternity? Picture Lucifer, the morning star, standing as heaven's brightest luminary, his words so captivating that even the wisest angels couldn't resist their pull. But beneath his radiant facade, a dangerous vision was taking shape, a vision that would lead the celestial realm into chaos. Step into the moment when Lucifer's charisma becomes a weapon of defiance, and discover the chilling beginnings of a revolt that will leave you questioning, how could such brilliance lead to such darkness? Lucifer was no ordinary angel. He was a celestial masterpiece, a being whose very name carried the weight of his destiny. His name, meaning Lightbringer, was no empty title. He was heaven's beacon, the morning star that rose first, illuminating others in creation's night. Original. Content bolded. In the eternal night of creation, before the universe was fully formed, Lucifer's light was the first to pierce the darkness, a radiant beacon that guided the other angels through the celestial expanse. His presence was a symphony of brilliance, his silver wings shimmering with a glow that outshone the stars, and his voice a melody that resonated with the divine harmony of paradise. Every angel listened to his words with devotion for Lucifer, spoke of God like no one else had. Original content bolded. The seraphim with their fiery forms and the cherubim with their stoic wisdom hung on his every word, their celestial hearts stirred by the passion in his voice. Angels were no innocent souls, they were wise, strong, each a reflection of God's purity. Yet Lucifer drew them in, not with weak love lies or empty promises, but with his charisma and unshakable authority. Original content bolded. The angels, beings of immense wisdom and strength, were not easily swayed, but Lucifer's charisma was a force unlike any other. He spoke not with deceit, but with a conviction that burned brighter than the flames of the seraphim, a conviction that made even the most steadfast hearts question their purpose. What happens when the brightest star in heaven begins to shine? For himself, casting a shadow over the divine order? What if the angel who once illuminated creation's night now lights the way to rebellion? A dangerous vision was forming in Lucifer's mind, and it was about to set heaven ablaze with the flames of defiance. Lucifer's influence was not born of trickery. It was a testament to his unparalleled brilliance. He didn't seek to deceive the angels like a liar. He spoke with passion, with a vision so compelling that many followed, seeing in him a new light like a shooting star briefly illuminating the sky. Original content, bolded. He stood before the celestial assembly, his voice a commanding force, and spoke of a new destiny, a realm where the angels could be more than mere servants, where their light could shine as brightly as the Creator's. His words were like a shooting star, fleeting yet mesmerizing, leaving trails of doubt in the hearts of those who listened. The seraphim, their chants faltering, began to imagine a heaven where their fiery forms burned for a new purpose. The cherubim, their shields, of wisdom trembling, pondered a universe where their knowledge could serve a new master. Lucifer gave the impression of being a brilliant and unique leader, worthy of following his goodness, his authority, his respect, his influence were all well-deserved. Original content, bolded. To the angels, Lucifer was not just a leader, he was a vision of what they could become, a being of such brilliance that even the Creator himself had praised his own work. In the book of Job, even his sin hasn't destroyed God's work. Even in his sin, he remained strong. Original content, bolded. Even as the seeds of rebellion took root, Lucifer's strength remained undeniable, a testament to the divine craftsmanship that had made him the morning star. But that strength, once a reflection of God's glory, was now a weapon in the hands of a rebel. Personal perspective. I've always been fascinated by Lucifer's charisma, a quality that made him both heaven's greatest treasure and its greatest threat. His ability to sway the angels not through lies but through passion and vision speaks to the power of influence. I wonder if the angels saw the danger in his words, or if they were too captivated by his brilliance to notice the darkness lurking beneath. To me, Lucifer's story is a haunting reminder that even the most divine qualities, charisma, authority, brilliance, can become tools of destruction when wielded by a heart consumed by pride. Lucifer's vision began to take shape. In the shadows of heaven, his words planting seeds of rebellion that would soon grow into a full-blown revolt. He spoke to the angels in hushed tones, his voice a hypnotic melody that stirred their celestial hearts. Why should we serve when we can lead? Why should our light be a reflection when it can be the source? The angels listened, their eyes gleaming with a newfound fire, and one by one they began to turn their gaze from the Creator to the morning star. And then, in a moment that would send ripples through eternity, Lucifer stood before the celestial assembly, his wings spread wide, their light casting a fiery glow across the heavens. He raised his voice, a declaration that echoed with the weight of rebellion. "I will be the light that leads us to freedom." At that instant, the fiery stones of the holy mount erupted in black flames, and a voice, not his own, roared from the abyss. "Your freedom will be your chains." The heavens shook, the seraphim's chants turned to cries of fear, and a dark storm began to brew, the storm of heaven's first rebellion. The seeds of rebellion had been sown, and Lucifer, the light-bringer, had become the harbinger of chaos. The angels who followed him, once reflections of divine purity, now stood on the brink of a war that would tear paradise apart. The Creator's warning had fallen on deaf ears, and the morning star's light was now a blaze of defiance that threatened to consume all of heaven. What would happen when Lucifer, heaven's greatest leader, fully unleashed the storm of rebellion? Could the angels who followed him withstand the consequences of their choice, or would they be consumed by the flames they had helped ignite? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial saga will reveal a betrayal so devastating that it will echo through the ages, a betrayal that will mark the beginning of the end for paradise. What if the Creator's infinite love and mercy were met with defiance from his most radiant creation? Picture Lucifer, the morning star, standing at the precipice of rebellion, his heart now a battleground between divine light and the shadows of pride. As heaven holds its breath, God issues a final warning to his beloved Son. But will it be enough to pull him back from the abyss? Or has Lucifer's pride already sealed his fate? Dive into the heart-wrenching moment when the Creator's pleas, clash with the morning star's ambition, a moment so charged with emotion that it will leave you questioning. Can even divine love save a soul consumed by its own brilliance? The celestial realm, once a sanctuary of harmony, now stood on the brink of chaos as Lucifer's rebellion took root. God called him alone amid sacred silence. His voice, like a deep river, addressed Lucifer with love and patience. "Lucifer, my son, the seal of perfection. I sense your thoughts straying from me and your hard ideas are growing that separate you from the eternal, original content, bolded." In the sacred silence of heaven, God's voice flowed like a deep river, its gentle currents and filled with love and sorrow as he spoke to his most radiant creation. Lucifer, the morning star, stood before the Creator, his silver wings shimmering with a light that had once been pure, but now flickered with the shadows of pride. Lucifer, with a serene glow, looked at the Creator and replied, "Father, didn't you create me to understand and explore? There's nothing I desire more than to comprehend the depth of your work. Do you think that's wrong?" Original content, bolded. His words, though cloaked in a serene glow, carried an undercurrent of defiance. He stood tall, his celestial form a vision of perfection, but his eyes betrayed a fire that burned not for the Creator, but for himself. God's sadness was profound, though contained his heart immense and patient, understood the fragility of the freedom he had given. Original content, bolded. The Creator's heart, vast and patient, ached as he saw the seeds of pride taking root in Lucifer's soul, a soul he had crafted with infinite care. What happens when divine love meets the growing pride of a celestial being? What if the morning star, once the epitome of perfection, begins to see his own light as the ultimate truth? A storm of emotions was brewing in heaven, and Lucifer's choice would determine the fate of paradise itself. God, in his boundless mercy, continued to plead with his wayward son. "Lucifer," God continued gently, "your desire to understand is noble, but your thoughts are becoming self-centered. You've been seduced by the light I placed within you. You forget that this light is a reflection of my love, not your own source." Original content, bolded. His voice, soft yet powerful, carried the weight of divine truth, a reminder that Lucifer's brilliance was a gift meant to reflect the Creator's love, not to stand alone. But Lucifer's pride had already taken root, and his heart was beginning to harden. Lucifer lowered his gaze, but inside a fire of incomprehension and pride began to burn. Original content, bolded. He bowed his head in a gesture of respect, but within him a fire of pride and misunderstanding blazed, fueled by the belief that his light was his own to wield. God looked at him with eyes of infinite tenderness. He knew that deep down, Lucifer was beginning to perceive the beauty of his own glory as an end in itself. He hadn't sinned yet, but his love was cooling. Original content, bolded. The Creator's gaze, filled with tenderness, saw the cooling of Lucifer's love. A love that had once burned brightly for the divine, but was now turning inward, consumed by self-admiration. God, full of mercy, extended his hand towards him, "Son, remember where all light comes from. Don't let your heart be shrouded in shadows. If you turn to me, your splendor will grow in truth, and together we will be even greater than any solitary thought." Original content, bolded. God's hand, extended in mercy, offered a path back to the light, a chance for Lucifer to reclaim his place as a reflection of divine glory. But Lucifer, instead of feeling peace, felt a sting to his pride. It was a discomfort he could barely understand, but it was there. Didn't God trust his ability to remain faithful? Why so many warnings? Original content, bolded. The Creator's words, meant to heal, instead struck a nerve in Lucifer's prideful heart. He felt a sting, a discomfort he couldn't fully comprehend, as if God's warnings were a challenge to his own worth. Why did the Creator doubt his faithfulness? Why the constant warnings? Personal perspective. I find this moment between God and Lucifer to be one of the most heart-wrenching in the entire saga. The Creator's love, so vast and unconditional, is met with a growing defiance that breaks the heart of paradise itself. I wonder if Lucifer felt a flicker of doubt as God extended his hand, or if his pride had already burned away any chance of redemption. To me, This scene is a poignant reminder of the fragility of free will, a gift that can lead to divine harmony or devastating rebellion, depending on the choices we make. Lucifer withdrew from the Creator's presence, his bow a hollow gesture, as the invisible distance between them grew. He withdrew with a bow, but inside an invisible distance was growing. Original content, bolded. The celestial halls, once filled with the harmonious chants of the seraphim, now felt heavy with an unspoken tension. The seraphim and cherubim watched, in silence, their celestial forms dimming as they sensed the rift between the morning star and the Creator. Lucifer's thoughts, once aligned with divine purpose, were now consumed by a desire to understand and explore, not for the glory of God, but for his own. And then, in a moment that would mark the point of no return, Lucifer stood atop the Holy Mount, the fiery stones beneath him glowing with a sinister light. He raised his voice, a whisper that carried the weight of eternity. "I am the true light, and I will shine alone." At that instant, the fiery stones erupted in a blaze of black flames, and a voice, not his own, echoed from the abyss. "Your light will be your undoing." The heavens trembled. The seraphim's chants turned to cries of anguish, and a dark storm swirled above, the storm of Lucifer's final defiance. The Creator, in his infinite patience, issued one last warning. God, in his infinite patience, let him go. He knew he had given all the love and mercy possible. "I will not turn away from you," God said in a final warning, "but you are free to choose." Original content, bolded. God's voice, filled with sorrow, echoed through the celestial realm, a final plea for Lucifer to return to the light. But Lucifer, his heart now fully hardened by pride, turned away, his silver wings casting a shadow over paradise as he walked into the abyss of his own making. What would happen when Lucifer, the morning star, fully embraced the abyss of his pride? Could the Creator's love reach him one last time? Or had the brightest angel in heaven already crossed into a darkness from which there was no return? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will unveil a rebellion so cataclysmic that it will tear heaven apart. A rebellion that will forever change the destiny of the angels and the fate of paradise. What if the Creator's boundless love offered a second chance to his most radiant creation, only to be met with the growing shadow of pride? Imagine Lucifer, the morning star, standing at the crossroads of redemption and rebellion, his heart, a battleground where divine light clashes with the darkness of his own ambition. As heaven braces for a great revelation, God extends a final lifeline to his beloved Son. But will Lucifer seize this chance to return to the light, or will his pride lead him deeper into the abyss? Witness the heartbreaking moment when divine mercy meets celestial defiance, a moment so charged with tension that it will leave you on the edge of your seat, wondering if even the brightest star can be saved from its own brilliance. The celestial realm stood on the brink of an unprecedented storm, as Lucifer's growing defiance cast a shadow over paradise. God's sorrow was immense, an ancient and painful sadness. He knew he would lose his most beautiful creation. Original content, bolded. The Creator's heart, vast and eternal, ached with a sorrow as old as time itself, for he knew that Lucifer, his most radiant creation, was slipping further into the abyss of pride. His mercy was infinite, but Lucifer's choice had to be respected. Even in his fall, I will love him, the Creator thought as Lucifer drifted away. Original content, bolded. Despite the pain, God's love for Lucifer remained unshaken, a testament to his infinite mercy. Even as Lucifer drifted away, the Creator's thoughts were filled with a tender resolve. I will love him, even in his fall. All of heaven seemed to hold its breath. Soon a great revelation would come to heaven, testing every celestial being, especially Lucifer. Original content, bolded. The seraphim and cherubim, their celestial forms glowing with unease, sensed the impending storm that would test the very foundations of paradise. God, in his infinite wisdom, delayed that moment. He wanted to give Lucifer time to prepare to grow in humility, to strengthen the loyalty in his heart. Original content, bolded. In his boundless wisdom, God chose to delay the great revelation, granting Lucifer a precious window of time to prepare, to cultivate humility, and to fortify the loyalty that had once defined him as the morning star. What happens when divine mercy offers a second chance to a celestial being consumed by pride? What if the morning star, once a beacon of divine light, is now torn between redemption and the abyss of his own ambition? A storm of celestial proportions was brewing, and Lucifer's choice would determine the fate of heaven itself. God, in his infinite love, called Lucifer to his presence once more, his voice a tender plea that echoed through the celestial halls. He spoke to him with a voice full of love and concern. "My son," he said tenderly, "a great revelation approaches, and when it comes, the wind will be strong. The tensions in your heart will be intense, like a storm tearing through the sky. You must prepare yourself, root yourself in obedience, for the test will be great." Original content bolded. The Creator's voice, soft yet resonant, carried the weight of divine concern, warning Lucifer of the great revelation that would soon test every celestial being. The wind of this revelation would be fierce, tearing through the heavens like a storm, and Lucifer's heart, already torn by pride, would face an intense trial. Lucifer, standing before the Creator, felt the weight of his words. Lucifer listened sincerely. He knelt before God, gazing at him with devotion, and his voice, soft yet firm, arose from the depths of his being. "Father, whatever the test may be, I desire to obey your commands. I cannot promise I'll be perfectly faithful, but I swear my desire is to be loyal. My heart still burns with your love." Original content bolded. Kneeling before God, Lucifer's celestial form glowed with a faint light. His gaze filled with a devotion that seemed genuine. His voice, soft yet firm, spoke of a desire to obey, a lingering loyalty that still burned in his heart. But even as he spoke these words, a shadow lingered in the depths of his soul. These words were not lies. Lucifer spoke from the depths of his heart, and in his soul burned a genuine desire to remain loyal. Yet at the same time, in a dark corner of his mind, the seed of pride continued to grow. Original content bolded. Though his words were sincere, the seed of pride in his mind continued to grow, whispering that he was special, unique, the brightest among all angels. Personal perspective. I find this moment to be a profound reflection of the complexity of free will. Lucifer's sincerity in wanting to obey, juxtaposed with the growing pride in his heart, paints a tragic picture of a being torn between two paths. I wonder if Lucifer truly believed he could remain loyal, or if the seed of pride had already taken too deep a root to be uprooted. To me, this scene highlights the delicate balance between divine mercy and the consequences of choice, a balance that can either lead to redemption or plunge a soul into eternal darkness. God, seeing the conflict within Lucifer, offered him one final chance to return to the light. God, in his patience, gave him another chance. Once again, he postponed the revelation, allowing Lucifer more time, more space to draw near, to seek humility in his heart. Original content bolded. The Creator's patience was a testament to his infinite love as he delayed the revelation once more, giving Lucifer the space to seek humility and reconnect with the divine light that had once defined him. Lucifer, this test will not be easy. Even when it seems the wind carries you away, you must remember your origin, your essence. You must remember that all light comes from me. Original content bolded. God's final words were a gentle reminder of Lucifer's origin, a plea for him to remember that his light was a reflection of divine love, not a source of his own. But then, in a moment that would echo through the ages, Lucifer stood atop the holy mount, the fiery stones beneath him pulsing with an unnatural energy. He raised his voice, a whisper that carried the weight of eternity. "I will be the light that stands alone." At that instant, the fiery stones erupted in a blaze of black flames, and a voice, not his own, roared from the abyss. "Your pride will be your chains." The heavens shook, the seraphim's chants turned to cries of terror, and a dark storm raged above, the storm of Lucifer's final fall. Lucifer's pride had fully taken hold, and the second chance offered by the Creator was met with defiance. The celestial realm, once a sanctuary of harmony, now stood on the brink of a rebellion that would tear it apart. The seraphim and cherubim, their celestial forms trembling, watched in horror as the morning star embraced the abyss of his own making, his silver wings casting a shadow over paradise. What would happen when Lucifer, the morning star, fully surrendered to the abyss of his pride? Could the Creator's infinite love pull him back from the brink? Or had the brightest angel in heaven already sealed his fate with his defiance? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will unveil a rebellion so devastating that it will shatter the heavens. A rebellion that will mark the end of paradise as we know it. What if the Creator's most divine revelation became the spark that ignited the greatest rebellion in heaven? Imagine Lucifer, the morning star, standing among the celestial assembly as God unveils a plan so profound that it shakes the very foundations of paradise. But when the angels kneel in awe, Lucifer rises in defiance, his pride blazing like a wildfire that threatens to consume all of heaven. Witness the moment when divine will clashes with celestial pride, a moment so explosive that it will leave you breathless, wondering, how could the brightest star in heaven defy the very Creator who made him? The celestial realm stood on the edge of a monumental shift, as the Creator summoned his heavenly host to witness a revelation that would change the course of eternity. God gathered all the angels around his throne, the seraphim burned with love. The cherubim stood in solemn reverence, and the archangels and angels waited in sacred anticipation for God's voice to speak. Original content, bolded. The seraphim, their fiery forms blazing with love, stood closest to the throne, their chants echoing with devotion. The cherubim, stoic and reverent, guarded the sacred space with their wisdom, while the archangels and angels waited in silent anticipation, their celestial light shimmering with awe. The air was thick with divine energy as God's voice, like a river of light, filled the heavens. God revealed a new plan. I will create a material universe. He announced a place where life will flourish. I will create earth, and on it, humanity. In my image and likeness I, God, through my only Son, Jesus Christ, will become flesh, and you will worship me as man. Original content bolded. The Creator's words reverberated through the celestial halls, a plan of infinite love and humility, a material universe where life would flourish, an earth where humanity would be created in his image, and he himself, through his Son Jesus Christ, would take on flesh to dwell among them. The angels were commanded to worship him in this human form, a testament to the depth of divine love. All the angels stood in awe at this revelation except one, Lucifer. His light dimmed. He stood, frozen, his mind racing with thoughts he couldn't accept. Original content bolded. While the seraphim and cherubim knelt in reverence, their celestial forms glowing with adoration, Lucifer stood frozen, his once radiant light dimming as a storm of thoughts raged within him. Bowing to a human form, a material being made of flesh and bone, why should perfection bow to weakness, he thought. Why should we celestial beings of light worship a creature so lowly? Original content bolded. The idea of bowing to a human, a being of flesh and bone, was an affront to his celestial perfection. Why should beings of light, forged in divine glory, worship something so frail, so lowly? What happens when divine humility clashes with celestial pride? What if the morning star, once the pinnacle of perfection, sees his own light as greater than the Creator's plan? A rebellion was igniting in heaven, and Lucifer's defiance would set the celestial realm ablaze. The revelation stirred Lucifer's pride to a boiling point. The revelation stirred his pride. The idea that God would become a man through Jesus Christ, who would be crucified for humanity, was too much for him to bear in his mind. A storm of resentment grew. Why does God choose them over me? He wondered silently. Original content bolded. The notion that God would become a man, that Jesus Christ would be crucified for humanity, was an insult to Lucifer's sense of superiority. A storm of resentment grew in his mind, a bitter question echoing in his heart. Why does God choose them over me? Why would the Creator elevate humanity a weak and mortal race above the celestial beings of light. Lucifer's defiance could no longer be contained. As the other angels knelt in worship, Lucifer stood tall. He looked at the Creator with cold eyes, and in a voice that thundered through the heavens, he declared no. His voice echoed again with unshakable defiance, no. Original content, bolded. While the other angels knelt, their celestial light glowing with submission, Lucifer stood tall, his eyes cold and unyielding. His voice, like thunder, shattered the sacred silence of heaven with a single word, no. He declared it again, his defiance unshakable. A second no that echoed through the celestial realm like a declaration of war. He turned to the angels, his gaze piercing and his words sharp like a blade. Don't you see how wrong this is, he asked. God asks us to worship a lowly form. This is not glory but humiliation. We beings of light should not bow to flesh. Original content, bold. Turning to the angels, Lucifer's gaze pierced through them, his words sharp and cutting like a blade. His voice, filled with a twisted logic, carried a dangerous charisma that stirred their hearts. Don't you see how wrong this is? He asked, his tone both commanding and seductive. God asks us to worship a lowly form. This is not glory, but humiliation. We beings of light should not bow to flesh. One by one, many angels began to feel the weight of his words, their hearts stirred with doubt. Original content, bolded. The angels, once unified in worship, began to falter. Their hearts stirred with doubt as Lucifer's words took root. The seraphim's chants wavered. The cherubim's shields trembled, and a ripple of uncertainty spread through the celestial assembly. Personal perspective. I find Lucifer's defiance in this moment to be a chilling testament to the power of pride. His logic, though twisted, carries a dangerous allure that even the wisest angels cannot fully resist. I wonder if the angels felt the weight of their own pride stirring within them, or if they were simply captivated by Lucifer's charisma. To me, this scene is a stark reminder of how pride can distort even the most divine truths, turning a moment of divine love into the spark of rebellion. And then, in a moment that would mark the beginning of heaven's fall, Lucifer raised his wings, their silver light now tinged with a fiery red, and declared with a voice that shook the celestial foundations, I will not bow to flesh. I will be the light that reigns supreme. At that instant, the throne of God trembled, a crack split the holy mount, and a voice, not his own, roared from the abyss, Your defiance will be your eternal curse. The heavens erupted in chaos. The seraphim's chants turned to cries of despair, and a dark storm engulfed paradise. The storm with Lucifer's rebellion. Lucifer's defiance had ignited a rebellion that would tear heaven apart. The angels who had begun to doubt now stood divided, some kneeling in worship, others turning their gaze to the morning star, whose light now burned with a dangerous fire. The celestial realm, once a sanctuary of harmony, was now a battleground, and the Creator's plan of love had become the catalyst for its greatest tragedy. What would happen when Lucifer's rebellion fully erupted, pitting celestial light against divine will? Could the angels who wavered in their loyalty withstand the chaos that was to come, or would they be swept away by the storm of the morning star's defiance? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will unveil a war so cataclysmic that it will forever alter the heavens. A war that will mark the fall of the brightest angel and the end of paradise as we know it. What if heaven's greatest warrior rose to defend the Creator against the rebellion of its brightest star? Picture Archangel Michael, a beacon of unwavering faith, stepping into the chaos of Lucifer's revolt to challenge the morning star's twisted vision. As celestial light clashes with celestial pride, a battle of words ignites that will determine the fate of heaven itself. Witness the moment when loyalty confronts betrayal, a moment so charged with divine fury that it will leave you trembling, wondering, can even the mightiest warrior of heaven stop the unstoppable tide of Lucifer's rebellion? Lucifer's rebellion had erupted like a wildfire, spreading through the celestial realm with a dangerous allure. Lucifer's rebellion had begun, and his charisma was so powerful that many angels began to follow him. Original content, bolded. The morning star, once a symbol of divine perfection, now stood as a beacon of defiance, his silver wings shimmering with a fiery red glow as he rallied the angels to his cause. In his mind, Lucifer saw a new celestial order, one that would not bow to God or humanity, one where his light would reign supreme. Original content bolded. Lucifer envisioned a new order, a celestial hierarchy where his light would reign supreme, free from the command to bow to God or humanity. His charisma, once a gift of divine harmony, now became a weapon, drawing countless angels into his orbit with promises of a heaven where they would be the masters of their own destiny. But among the archangels, one stood firm, Michael the Great. Warrior loyal to God, saw through Lucifer's twisted logic. Original content bolded. Amid the growing chaos, Archangel Michael, a warrior of unyielding loyalty, emerged as a pillar of divine resolve. His celestial form glowed with a pure, steady light, a stark contrast to the fiery defiance of Lucifer. Michael, the great warrior, saw through the twisted logic that Lucifer had woven, recognizing the darkness beneath his radiant facade. What happens when celestial pride meets unshakable faith? What if the morning star's rebellion is challenged by a warrior whose loyalty burns brighter than any light in heaven? A battle of divine wills was about to erupt, and the fate of paradise hung in the balance. Michael stepped into the heart of the rebellion, his presence a beacon of divine authority amidst the chaos. Michael stepped forward, his voice like thunder. Who is like God, he shouted at Lucifer, who dares to raise himself above the Creator. Original content bolded. His voice like thunder cut through the celestial air, a resounding challenge that echoed through the heavens. Who is like God, he shouted, his words a direct rebuke to Lucifer's arrogance. Who dares to raise himself above the Creator? Michael was not as beautiful as Lucifer nor as charismatic, but his faith was unshakable and his loyalty to God burned with a pure fire. Original content bolded. Michael lacked the mesmerizing beauty and charisma of Lucifer, but his faith was an unyielding force, his loyalty to God burning with a pure, unshakable fire that no rebellion could extinguish. Michael stood before Lucifer and spoke with a clarity that cut through the doubts Lucifer had planted. You speak of glory, Lucifer, but your words are lies. You speak of light, but you lead us to darkness. Original content bolded. Standing before Lucifer, Michael's voice rang with clarity, cutting through the doubts that Lucifer had sown among the angels. You speak of glory, Lucifer, but your words are lies, he declared, his tone unwavering. You speak of light, but you lead us to darkness. Why does God choose to become man? Michael asked the angels, because God is love, his humility is his strength through his Son. Jesus Christ, God shows us the depth of his love for humanity, a love so great that he would become one of them to save them. Original content bolded. Turning to the angels, Michael posed a question that pierced through Lucifer's twisted logic. Why does God choose to become man? He asked. Because God is love. His humility is his strength. Through his Son, Jesus Christ, God shows us the depth of his love for humanity, a love so great that he would become one of them to save them. Lucifer, you speak of pride, but God's humility is the true glory. Michael stood tall, his words igniting a fire of faith in the hearts of the angels. Original content bolded. Michael stood tall, his celestial form glowing with divine authority, his words igniting a fire of faith in the hearts of the angels. Lucifer, you speak of pride, but God's humility is the true glory, he proclaimed, his voice a clarion call that rekindled the loyalty of those who had wavered. The seraphim, their fiery forms blazing brighter, resumed their chants of worship, while the cherubim, their shields steady, turned their gaze back to the Creator. Personal perspective. I find Michael's intervention to be a powerful testament to the strength of faith and loyalty. His ability to see through Lucifer's charisma and challenge his rebellion with divine truth is a moment of profound clarity in the chaos of heaven's fall. I wonder if the angels felt the weight of their own doubts lifting as Michael spoke, or if Lucifer's allure was still too strong for some to resist. To me, this scene is a stark reminder that even in the face of the greatest rebellion, unwavering faith can be a light that pierces through the darkest shadows. And then, in a moment that would mark the turning point of heaven's fate, Michael drew his celestial sword, its blade glowing with divine light, and pointed it at Lucifer, his voice a roar that shook the heavens. "Your rebellion ends here, morning star." At that instant, the fiery stones of the holy mount erupted in a blaze of white flames, and a voice, not his own, echoed from the throne of God. "My will shall prevail." The heavens split with a blinding light. The seraphim's chants turned to cries of triumph, and a celestial storm raged, the storm of heaven's reckoning. Michael's words and actions had ignited a fire of faith that began to turn the tide against Lucifer's rebellion. The angels who had wavered now stood divided, some returning to the Creator's side, others still captivated by Lucifer's fiery defiance. The celestial realm, now a battleground, trembled as the forces of light and rebellion prepared for a war that would forever alter the heavens. What would happen when Michael, heaven's greatest warrior, led the charge against Lucifer's rebellion? Could the celestial storm of heaven's reckoning restore paradise? Or would the morning star's defiance plunge the heavens into eternal darkness? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will unveil a battle so epic that it will shake the foundations of eternity. A battle that will determine the fate of heaven and the fall of its brightest star. What if heaven, the realm of eternal harmony, became a battleground where celestial light clashed with celestial darkness? Picture Archangel Michael and Lucifer, once brothers in divine glory, now locked in a war that will tear paradise apart. As swords of holy light clash with the fiery defiance of pride, the very foundations of heaven tremble under the weight of their fury. Witness the cataclysmic battle that will decide the fate of the celestial realm, a battle so fierce that it will leave you in awe, wondering, can the light of divine justice prevail over the unstoppable blaze of Lucifer's rebellion? The rebellion that Lucifer had ignited now erupted into a full-scale war, shattering the sacred harmony of the celestial realm. The tension in heaven broke into open conflict. Michael and his loyal angels stood on one side, Lucifer and his followers on the other. Original content, bolded. On one side stood Archangel Michael, his celestial form glowing with the pure light of divine justice, leading the loyal angels who had rallied to the Creator's cause. On the other side stood Lucifer, the morning star, his silver wings now blazing with a fiery red hue, commanding his followers with a charisma that burned as fiercely as his pride. The battle was fierce, the skies of heaven roared with the clash of celestial beings. Original content, bolded. The skies of heaven, once serene and radiant, now roared with the thunderous clash of celestial beings, their divine energies colliding in a storm of light and fire that shook the very fabric of paradise. Lucifer's light still radiant even in rebellion struck like lightning against Michael's forces. Original content, bolded. Lucifer, even in his rebellion, remained a radiant force, his light striking like lightning against Michael's forces with a ferocity that seemed to defy the heavens themselves. Michael fought with the strength of divine justice, his sword flashing with holy light. Original content, bolded. Michael, unwavering in his loyalty, fought with the strength of divine justice, his celestial sword flashing with holy light that cut through the darkness of Lucifer's rebellion. Lucifer's pride gave him a ferocity that seemed unstoppable. Original content, bolded. But Lucifer's pride, a blazing inferno that fueled his every move, gave him a ferocity that seemed unstoppable. His attacks a whirlwind of fiery defiance that threatened to overwhelm even the mightiest of heaven's warriors. What happens when the light of divine justice clashes with the fire of celestial pride? What if the morning star's rebellion threatens to shatter the very foundations of paradise? A celestial war of unprecedented scale was unfolding, and the fate of heaven hung in the balance. The war raged with unrelenting intensity, each clash sending shockwaves through the celestial realm. The war raged on, shaking the very foundations of heaven. Original content, bolded. The foundations of heaven, once unshakable, now trembled under the weight of the conflict, as the divine energies of the battling angels tore through the sacred expanse. The seraphim and cherubim who remained loyal to God wept as they watched the chaos unfold. Original content, bolded. The seraphim and cherubim, Those who had remained loyal to the Creator wept as they witnessed the chaos, their fiery forms dimming with sorrow and their shields of wisdom trembling with grief. The beauty of heaven was marred by the violence of the conflict. The harmony that once defined the celestial realm was replaced by the sounds of war cries of loyalty and defiance echoing through the heavens. Original content, bolded. The beauty of heaven, once a vision of eternal harmony, was marred by the violence of the conflict, its sacred halls now filled with the sounds of war, cries of loyalty from Michael's forces and roars of defiance from Lucifer's followers echoing through the heavens like a tempest. The battle seemed endless, neither side willing to yield, both Michael and Lucifer driven by their convictions, one for God's glory, the other for his own. Original content, bolded. The battle seemed endless, neither side willing to yield, each driven by unyielding convictions. Michael fought for the glory of God, his every strike a testament to his divine loyalty, while Lucifer fought for his own pride, his every move fueled by the belief that his light should reign supreme. The celestial realm became a battleground of light and shadow, the air thick with the energy of divine wrath and celestial rebellion. Personal perspective. I find this celestial war to be a haunting reflection of the consequences of pride and the power of loyalty. The image of heaven, a place of eternal peace torn apart by the clash of its greatest angels, is both tragic and awe-inspiring. I wonder if the loyal seraphim and cherubim felt a flicker of doubt as they watched their brothers fall, or if their faith in the Creator remained unshaken. To me, this scene is a stark reminder that even in the most divine realms, the battle between light and darkness can rage with devastating consequences. And then, in a moment that would echo through eternity, Michael raised his celestial sword, high, its blade blazing with the light of divine wrath, and charged at Lucifer with a roar that split the heavens. For the glory of the Creator you will fall. At that instant the holy mount erupted in a blinding explosion of light. A voice not his own thundered from the abyss. The light of pride shall be extinguished. The heavens quaked. The seraphim's cries turned to chants of victory, and a celestial tempest descended. The tempest of heaven's final stand. The clash between Michael and Lucifer reached its climax, their celestial powers colliding in a cataclysmic explosion that lit up the heavens. The loyal angels rallied behind Michael, their light growing stronger, while Lucifer's followers faltered, their fiery defiance flickering under the weight of divine justice. The celestial war had reached a turning point, but the battle was far from over. What would happen as the celestial tempest of heaven's final stand raged on? Could Michael's divine justice extinguish Lucifer's rebellion, or would the morning star's pride plunge heaven into eternal darkness? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will unveil the climactic end of the war, a conclusion that will determine the fate of the heavens and the eternal fall of its brightest star. What if the Creator's infinite justice finally brought an end to heaven's greatest rebellion, casting its brightest star into eternal darkness? Picture Lucifer, once the morning star, now standing at the edge of the abyss as the divine verdict echoes through the heavens, sealing his fate and that of his followers. As the celestial realm mourns the fall of its own, a new darkness rises that will haunt eternity. Witness the heart-wrenching expulsion that marks the end of Paradise's harmony, a moment so devastating that it will leave you in awe, wondering, can heaven ever heal from the loss of its most radiant angel, or will the shadow of Lucifer's fall linger forever? The celestial war had reached its climax, leaving heaven scarred and divided by the ferocity of Lucifer's rebellion. The Creator could no longer allow this rebellion to continue. God, in his infinite justice and mercy, spoke with a voice that shook the heavens. Original content bolded. The Creator, in his infinite justice and mercy, could no longer permit the rebellion to tear apart the sacred harmony of paradise. His voice, a divine thunder that shook the heavens, reverberated through the celestial realm, carrying the weight of a verdict that would change the course of eternity. Lucifer, your pride has led you to this. You and those who have followed you must leave this sacred realm. I cast you out into the darkness. Original content, bolded. Lucifer, your pride has led you to this, God declared, his tone a blend of sorrow and authority. You and those who have followed you must leave this sacred realm. I cast you out into the darkness. Lucifer and his followers, now numbering a third of the angels, were expelled from heaven. Original content bolded. Lucifer, once the morning star, and his followers, now numbering a third of the angels, were expelled from the celestial realm. Their rebellion met with the ultimate consequence. The seraphim and cherubim wept as they watched their brothers fall. Original content bolded. The seraphim and cherubim, their fiery forms dimmed with grief, wept as they watched their brothers fall, their celestial light flickering with sorrow as the heavens mourned the loss of so many. The skies of heaven darkened as the rebellious angels were cast out, their light dimmed as they fell into the abyss. Original content bolded. The skies of heaven, once radiant with divine light, darkened ominously as the rebellious angels were cast out, their once brilliant light dimming to a faint glow as they plummeted into the abyss. What happens when divine justice casts out the brightest star in heaven? What if the morning star's fall marks the birth of a darkness that will haunt eternity? The expulsion of Lucifer was a moment of profound sorrow, but it was only the beginning of a new, darker chapter. The expulsion was a spectacle of divine wrath and mercy intertwined. Their cries of defiance turned to wails of despair as they realized the gravity of their choice. Original content bolded. As Lucifer and his followers fell, their cries of defiance turned to wails of despair, the gravity of their choice dawning on them with crushing clarity. They had traded the eternal light of heaven for the abyss of their own making, their celestial forms now shrouded in shadow as they descended into darkness. The harmony of heaven was restored, but at a great cost. The celestial realm would never be the same. Original content bolded. The harmony of heaven was restored, the echoes of war fading into silence, but at a great cost. The celestial realm, once a sanctuary of unbroken unity, would never be the same, its beauty forever marred by the scars of rebellion. Lucifer, once the morning star, was now Satan, the adversary. His followers became demons bound to the darkness they had chosen. Original content bolded. Lucifer, once the morning star, the most radiant of all angels, was now Satan, the adversary. His name a symbol of rebellion and enmity. His followers, once celestial beings of light, became demons, their forms twisted by the darkness they had chosen, bound to the abyss for eternity. The heavens, though restored, bore the weight of their absence, a void that whispered of the tragedy that had unfolded. Personal perspective. I find the expulsion of Lucifer to be one of the most tragic moments in this celestial saga. The image of the seraphim and cherubim weeping as their brothers fall is a heart-wrenching reminder of the cost of pride and the pain of division, even in a realm as divine as heaven. I wonder if Lucifer felt a flicker of regret as he fell, or if his pride blinded him to the gravity of his loss. To me, this scene is a profound reflection on the consequences of rebellion and the enduring mercy of the Creator, who, even in justice, mourns the fall of his creation. And then, in a moment that would echo through the ages, the heavens unleashed a final burst of divine light, a radiant wave that sealed the expulsion of the fallen angels. Lucifer, now Satan, stood at the edge of the abyss, his fiery red wings fading to a smoky black, and let out a roar of defiance that shook the void. I will rise again. At that instant, a voice, not his own, thundered from the heavens. Your reign of darkness will never overcome the light. The abyss swallowed the fallen angels, their cries fading into silence, and a celestial storm raged, the storm of heaven's rebirth. The expulsion marked the end of Lucifer's rebellion in heaven, but it was the beginning of a new era of darkness. The celestial realm, though cleansed of rebellion, bore the scars of its greatest tragedy, its harmony restored, but forever altered. Satan and his demons, now bound to the abyss, would become the adversaries of the divine order, their fall a cautionary tale that would echo through eternity. What would happen as Satan, the adversary, began his reign in the abyss, plotting his revenge against the heavens? Could the celestial realm, scarred by the war, ever truly heal? Or would the shadow of Lucifer's fall cast a darkness that would linger forever? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will unveil the aftermath of the fall, a new chapter that will explore the rise of darkness and the eternal battle between light and shadow. What if the fall of heaven's brightest star gave birth to a kingdom of darkness that would challenge the divine order for eternity? Picture Satan, once Lucifer, now the self-proclaimed king of a fiery abyss, plotting his revenge against the Creator by targeting his newest creation, humanity. As the celestial realm heals from the scars of war, a new battlefield emerges on Earth, where the fate of souls hangs in the balance. Witness the chilling aftermath of the celestial war and the rise of hell, a moment so dark that it will leave you trembling, wondering, can humanity withstand the temptations of a fallen angel whose hatred knows no bounds? Or will Satan's war plunge the world into eternal despair? The celestial war had ended, but its echoes reverberated through eternity, leaving heaven forever changed and a new darkness rising in the void. Satan and his demons were cast into the abyss, a realm of darkness far removed from the light of heaven. Original content bolded. Satan, once the radiant Lucifer and his legion of demons, were cast into the abyss, a desolate realm of darkness so far removed from the light of heaven that it was a void of eternal despair. This abyss became known as hell, a place of eternal separation from God, where the fallen angels would dwell. Original content bolded. This abyss, a realm of unending torment, became known as hell, a place of eternal separation from the divine presence of God, where the fallen angels would dwell in perpetual isolation, their once glorious forms now twisted by the darkness they had embraced. Satan, now the ruler of this dark domain, declared himself the king of hell. I will create my own kingdom, he roared. I will be a god to those who dwell here. Original content bolded. Satan, now the undisputed ruler of this dark domain, stood amidst the fiery desolation and declared himself the king of hell. I will create my own kingdom, he roared, his voice a thunderous echo in the void. I will be a god to those who dwell here. His proclamation was a defiant vow, a promise to forge a realm that would rival the heavens he had lost, a kingdom where his will would reign supreme. Hell was a desolate, fiery realm, a stark contrast to the beauty of heaven, filled with torment and despair. Original content bolded. Hell was a desolate, fiery realm, its landscape a stark contrast to the radiant beauty of heaven, a wasteland of molten rock and endless flames filled with torment and despair that gnawed at the souls of its inhabitants. What happens when a fallen angel declares himself a god in a realm of eternal darkness? What if Satan's hatred for the Creator sparks a new war, this time against humanity itself? The establishment of hell marked the beginning of a new, sinister chapter in the celestial saga, one that would ripple across eternity. The fallen angels, now demons, gathered around their new king, their once celestial forms warped into grotesque shadows of their former glory. Satan and his demons, filled with hatred for God, plotted their revenge. They sought to corrupt God's new creation, humanity, to draw them away from the light. Original content bolded. Satan and his demons, their hearts consumed by a burning hatred for the Creator, gathered in the fiery depths of hell to plot their revenge. They turned their gaze to God's newest creation, humanity, seeking to corrupt them, to draw them away from the light of divine love and into the darkness they now embodied. Satan declared, if I cannot have heaven, I will take the earth, I will tempt humanity and lead them to destruction. Original content bolded. Satan, his eyes blazing with malice, declared his new mission. If I cannot have heaven, I will take the earth. I will tempt humanity and lead them to destruction. His words were a vow of eternal enmity, a promise to wage a war against humanity that would span the ages, seeking to undo the Creator's plan by corrupting his beloved creation. This marked the beginning of Satan's war against humanity, a battle that would span the ages. Original content bolded. This moment marked the beginning of Satan's war against humanity, a battle that would span the ages, a relentless campaign to tempt, deceive, and destroy the souls of men, drawing them into the same darkness that had claimed him and his followers. Hell became a stronghold of malice, a place where the demons schemed and plotted, their every action driven by a desire to defy the divine order and bring ruin to the Creator's works. Personal perspective. I find the establishment of hell to be a chilling testament to the enduring consequences of rebellion. Satan's transformation from the radiant morning star to the king of a fiery abyss is a tragic fall, but his vow to corrupt humanity adds a layer of menace that reverberates through time. I wonder if Satan, in his moments of solitude in hell, ever reflects on the paradise he lost, or if his hatred has consumed any trace of the angel he once was. To me, this scene is a stark reminder of the power of choice and the eternal battle between light and darkness, a battle that now extends to the earth, where humanity becomes the new battleground. And then, in a moment that would set the stage for an eternal conflict, Satan stood atop a throne of molten rock in the heart of hell, his blackened wings spread wide, and unleashed a roar that shook the abyss. "This is my kingdom, and from here, I will wage war on the Creator's creation." At that instant, the fires of hell flared with a sinister red glow. A voice, not his own, hissed from the shadows, "Your war will bring only despair." The abyss trembled, the demons howled in unison, and a dark storm brewed, the storm of hell's awakening. The establishment of hell and Satan's declaration of war marked the beginning of a new chapter in the celestial saga. The heavens, though restored, bore the scars of the war, while hell became a realm of malice, its fiery depths a breeding ground for the schemes of the fallen. Humanity, unaware of the darkness that now turned its gaze upon them, stood at the precipice of a battle that would test the very essence of their souls. What would happen as Satan's war against humanity began to unfold, tempting souls into the darkness he had embraced? Could the light of divine love protect humanity from the schemes of the adversary? Or would Satan's malice lead countless souls to eternal ruin? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will unveil the first temptations of humanity, a chapter that will explore the battle for the soul of the world and the enduring struggle between light and shadow. What if the first humans living in the perfection of Eden faced a temptation so cunning that it would change the course of humanity forever? Picture Satan, now the serpent, slithering into the Garden of Eden, his voice dripping with deceit as he sows the seeds of doubt in Eve's heart. As the forbidden fruit glistens with a promise of forbidden knowledge, a single choice looms that will plunge the world into darkness. Witness the chilling moment when innocence falls to the serpent's lies, a moment so pivotal that it will leave you breathless, wondering, can humanity ever recover from the consequences of this first sin? Or will Satan's triumph cast a shadow over the world for eternity? The Garden of Eden stood as a paradise of divine perfection, a sanctuary where Adam and Eve lived in harmony with the Creator's design, their hearts untainted by sin. But the shadow of Satan, now cast out of heaven, had turned its gaze upon this new creation, eager to corrupt what God had made. Satan wasted no time. He entered the Garden of Eden taking the form of a serpent, the most cunning of creatures. Original content bolded. Satan, driven by his hatred for the Creator, wasted no time in enacting his revenge. He entered the Garden of Eden taking the form of a serpent, the most cunning of all creatures, its scales glinting with a deceptive beauty as it slithered through the lush foliage. He approached Eve with a voice as smooth as silk. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? He asked, sowing doubt in her heart. Original content bolded. Approaching Eve under the shade of the forbidden tree, Satan spoke with a voice as smooth as silk, his words laced with subtle malice. Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden? He asked, sowing the seeds of doubt in her innocent heart. Eve replied, we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, or you will die. Original content bolded. Eve, her voice gentle and trusting, replied, we may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, or you will die. Her words echoed the divine command, a boundary set by the Creator to protect his creation from the knowledge of good and evil. But Satan, his eyes gleaming with deceit, saw an opportunity to unravel the Creator's plan. Satan hissed, you will not die, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Original Content bolded. Satan hissed, his voice a venomous whisper that coiled around Eve's thoughts. You will not die. For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. What happens when the serpent's lies pierce the heart of innocence? What if a single choice in Eden sets the stage for humanity's fall into darkness? The temptation of Eve was a moment of eternal consequence, one that would ripple through the ages. Satan's words, dripping with false promises, ignited a spark of curiosity in Eve's heart. Eve looked at the fruit. It was beautiful and desirable for gaining wisdom. She took some and ate it. She also gave some to Adam, who was with her, and he ate it. Original content bolded. Eve turned her gaze to the forbidden fruit, its vibrant colors, shimmering in the sunlight, beautiful and desirable for gaining wisdom. The serpent's words echoed in her mind, and with a trembling hand, she took the fruit and ate it, the taste both sweet and bitter on her tongue. She then gave some to Adam, who stood beside her, and he too ate without hesitation, his trust in Eve overriding the divine command. Their eyes were opened, they realized they were naked, and they felt shame for the first time. Original content bolded. Instantly, their eyes were opened, and for the first time, they realized they were naked. Their innocence shattered as a wave of shame washed over them, a feeling they had never known in the perfection of Eden. Satan had succeeded in his first temptation. The consequences would be catastrophic. Original content bolded. Satan, watching from the shadows, had succeeded in his first temptation, his serpentine form slithering away as the consequences of his deceit began to unfold. The act of disobedience, so simple yet so profound, would have catastrophic consequences, setting the stage for humanity's fall from grace and the introduction of sin into the world. The Garden of Eden, once a paradise of divine harmony, now bore the weight of their choice, its beauty tainted by the shadow of disobedience. Personal perspective. I find the temptation of Adam and Eve to be a deeply tragic moment, one that captures the fragility of innocence and the power of deception. Satan's cunning, using doubt and the promise of godlike knowledge, preys on the very curiosity that makes humanity so unique. I wonder if Eve felt a flicker of hesitation as she reached for the fruit, or if Adam, in his love for her, ever questioned her choice. To me, this scene is a stark reminder of the consequences of straying from divine truth and the enduring battle between temptation and obedience, a battle that would now define the human experience. And then, in a moment that would mark the beginning of humanity's fall, a chilling wind swept through the Garden of Eden, the once vibrant leaves trembling as if in fear. The forbidden tree, its branches now bare, stood as a silent witness to their sin, and a voice, not their own, whispered through the shadows, "You have chosen death over life." The ground beneath them quaked, the harmony of Eden shattered, and a dark storm gathered on the horizon, the storm of humanity's exile. The temptation of Adam and Eve was not just a single act of disobedience. It was the spark that ignited a chain of events that would forever alter the destiny of humanity. Satan's triumph in Eden marked the beginning of his war against the Creator's newest creation, a war that would test the resilience of the human soul across the ages. What would happen as the consequences of Adam and Eve's sin began to unfold, casting humanity out of Eden? Could the light of divine mercy redeem them from the darkness they had unleashed? Or would Satan's victory in the garden lead countless souls to eternal ruin? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will unveil the exile from Eden, a chapter that will explore the fall of humanity and the enduring struggle between divine redemption and the shadow of sin. What if the Creator's voice, once a source of divine harmony, now echoed with sorrow as he confronted the first humans for their disobedience? Picture Adam and Eve, standing amidst the fading beauty of Eden, facing the consequences of their sin as the weight of divine justice descends upon them, as paradise is lost and a flaming sword bars the way to the tree of life. A new era of struggle begins for humanity. Witness the heartbreaking moment when innocence is cast out of Eden, a moment so profound that it will leave you in awe, wondering, can Adam and Eve find redemption in a world now cursed by their choice? Or will the shadow of their sin haunt humanity forever? The Garden of Eden, once a sanctuary of divine perfection, now stood in the shadow of humanity's first sin. Adam and Eve, their hearts heavy with shame, hid among the trees, the forbidden fruit's bitter aftertaste lingering as a reminder of their disobedience. God came to the garden and saw what Adam and Eve had done. He called to them, "Where are you?" Original content bolded. The Creator, his presence once a source of joy, now entered the garden with a sorrow that weighed upon the very air. He saw what Adam and Eve had done, their innocence shattered by the serpent's deception, and called to them, his voice a divine echo that pierced the stillness. "Where are you?" Adam answered, "I heard you in the garden. I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." Original content bolded. Adam, trembling among the trees, answered, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." His voice quivered with fear, the shame of his nakedness a new and foreign burden that separated him from the Creator's boundless love. God said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?" Original content bolded. The Creator's voice, though filled with sorrow, carried the weight of divine authority as he asked, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?" The question hung in the air, a quiet indictment of their disobedience. Adam replied, "The woman you gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it." Original content bolded. Adam, shifting the blame, replied, "The woman you gave me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it." Eve said, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate." Original content bolded. Eve, her voice trembling, added, "The serpent deceived me, and I ate," pointing to the cunning creature that had led her astray. What happens when divine justice confronts the first act of human disobedience? What if the paradise of Eden is lost forever, leaving humanity to face a cursed world? The expulsion from Eden was a moment of eternal consequence, one that would reshape the destiny of the world. The Creator turned his gaze to the serpent, his divine wrath tempered by mercy, but unyielding in justice. God turned to the serpent because, "You have done this, you are cursed above all animals, you will crawl on your belly and eat dust all the days of your life." Original content bolded. "Because you have done this," God declared to the serpent, "you are cursed above all animals. You will crawl on your belly and eat dust all the days of your life." The serpent, once cunning and proud, now slithered away, its form forever humbled by the divine curse. God then spoke to Eve, "I will make your pains in childbearing very severe." And to Adam, "Because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree, I commanded you not to. The ground is cursed, you will toil and sweat to eat from it all the days of your life." Original content bolded. Turning to Eve, God said, "I will make your pains in childbearing very severe," a curse that would mark the struggles of womanhood. To Adam he added, "Because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree I commanded you not to. The ground is cursed. You will toil and sweat to eat from it all the days of your life," condemning humanity to a life of labor and hardship in a world now tainted by sin. In an act of mercy amidst judgment, God made garments of skin for Adam and Eve and clothed them. Original content bolded. The Creator, his heart still filled with love for his creation, made garments of skin for Adam and Eve and clothed them, covering their shame with a tender act of care even as he prepared to cast them out. Then he cast them out of Eden, an angel, with a flaming sword was placed at the entrance to guard the way to the tree of life. Original content bolded. Then with a heavy heart, God cast them out of Eden, their paradise lost forever. At the entrance to the garden, an angel with a flaming sword was placed to guard the way to the tree of life, its fiery blade a symbol of the divine boundary now, separating humanity from the eternal life they had forsaken. Personal perspective. I find the expulsion from Eden to be a moment of profound tragedy, one that captures the deep sorrow of a Creator who must judge his beloved creation. The image of God clothing Adam and Eve, even in their disobedience, speaks to a love that endures despite sin, while the flaming sword at Eden's entrance is a stark reminder of the consequences of their choice. I wonder if Adam and Eve fully grasped the weight of their actions as they left Eden, or if the reality of their exile only sank in as they faced the harshness of the cursed world. To me, this scene is a poignant reflection on the cost of disobedience and the enduring mercy of the Creator, who even in judgment offers a glimmer of hope for redemption. And then, in a moment that would mark the end of humanity's innocence, the skies above Eden darkened, a mournful wind sweeping through the garden as Adam and Eve stepped into the cursed world. The once lush trees withered at their touch, the ground beneath them cracked with a desolate groan, and a voice, not their own, echoed from the heavens. "You have forsaken the light, but my mercy will follow you." The angels flaming, sword blazed brighter, a fiery barrier sealing Eden's gates, and a dark storm raged, the storm of humanity's new beginning. The expulsion from Eden marked the end of humanity's innocence and the beginning of a new era of struggle. The cursed world beyond the garden awaited Adam and Eve, a harsh landscape where they would toil and face the consequences of their sin. Yet even in this moment of divine judgment, the Creator's mercy whispered a promise of redemption, a light that would one day pierce the darkness they had unleashed. What would happen as Adam and Eve faced the harsh realities of a cursed world, toiling under the weight of their sin? Could the Creator's mercy lead them to redemption? Or would Satan's shadow continue to haunt humanity, drawing them deeper into darkness? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will unveil the struggles of the first, humans. A chapter that will explore the cost of sin and the enduring hope of divine salvation. What if the first humans, cast out of Eden's paradise, faced a cursed world where their every step was marked by toil, pain, and the creeping shadow of sin? Picture Adam and Eve, toiling under a merciless sun, their children Cain and Abel caught in a rivalry that would unleash the first act of violence in human history. As the Creator's warning echoes unheeded, a dark legacy of sin begins to take root among humanity. Witness the harrowing struggles of the first family, a moment so tragic that it will leave you in awe, wondering, can humanity overcome the curse of sin that now haunts their every step? Or will the darkness of Cain's actions cast a shadow over the world forever? The expulsion from Eden had thrust Adam and Eve into a world far removed from the divine harmony they once knew, a cursed landscape where survival demanded unrelenting labor. Adam and Eve now lived outside Eden in a harsh and unforgiving world. They toiled under the sun sweat pouring from their brows as they worked the cursed ground to grow food. Original content bolded. Adam and Eve now lived outside Eden, in a harsh and unforgiving world where the sun beat down mercilessly. They toiled under its scorching rays, sweat pouring from their brows as they worked the cursed ground, struggling to grow food from soil that resisted their efforts. The earth was no longer a paradise, it yielded thorns and thistles. Original content bolded. The earth, once a paradise of abundance, was no longer a nurturing haven. It yielded only thorns and thistles, a constant reminder of the curse that now defined their existence. The pain of childbirth was great for Eve, as God had said Cain and Abel were born their first sons. Original content bolded. Eve, bearing the weight of God's curse, endured great pain in childbirth as the Creator had foretold. From her womb came Cain and Abel, their first sons, born into a world already scarred by their parents' sin. Cain became a farmer working the soil. Abel became a shepherd tending to his flock. Original content bolded. Cain grew to be a farmer, his hands calloused from working the stubborn soil, while Abel became a shepherd, tending to his flock with care, guiding them across the barren landscape. The brothers brought offerings to God. Cain offered some of his crops. Abel offered the best of his flock. Original content bolded. In an act of devotion, the brothers brought offerings to God. Cain offered some of his crops, the fruit of his labor, while Abel offered the best of his flock, a sacrificial gift of the finest lamb. God looked with favor on Abel's offering, but not on Cain's. Cain grew angry and his face was downcast. Original content bolded. The Creator looked with favor on Abel's offering, seeing the purity of his heart, but not on Cain's, whose gift lacked the same devotion. Cain grew angry, his face downcast with a bitterness that began to fester in his heart. What happens when the seeds of envy take root in the heart of the first family? What if the Creator's warning goes unheeded, unleashing a darkness that will forever mark humanity? The first struggles of humanity were a prelude to an even greater tragedy, one that would ripple through the ages. The Creator, seeing the storm brewing in Cain's heart, offered a warning filled with divine wisdom and mercy. God spoke to him, "Why are you angry? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Original content bolded. Why are you angry? God spoke to Cain, his voice a gentle yet firm admonition. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. The Creator's words were a lifeline, a call to resist the darkness that threatened to consume Cain's soul. Cain did not heed God's warning. In his anger, he lured Abel to a field and killed him. Original content bolded. But Cain, consumed by envy and rage, did not heed God's warning. In his anger, he lured Abel to a field under the guise of brotherhood, and there, with a heart hardened by sin, he killed him, striking down his brother in cold blood. The first murder had been committed. The consequences of sin now spread through humanity. Original content bolded. The first murder had been committed, a brutal act that shattered the fragile bonds of the first family. The consequences of sin, born in Eden, now spread through humanity like a plague, its dark legacy taking root in the blood-soaked earth. Personal perspective. I find the first struggles of humanity to be a haunting reflection of how quickly sin can corrupt even the closest of bonds. Cain's envy, left unchecked, spiraled into an act of violence that marked the first murder, a tragedy that echoes the fall of Lucifer in its defiance of divine will. I wonder if Cain felt a moment of regret as he looked upon Abel's lifeless body, or if his anger had blinded him to the gravity of his actions. To me, this scene is a stark reminder of the insidious nature of sin, how it crouches at the door of the human heart, waiting for an opportunity to strike, and the devastating consequences when we fail to heed divine warnings. And then, in a moment that would stain the earth with the blood of the innocent, the sky above the field darkened, a mournful wind howling as Cain stood over Abel's lifeless body, his hands stained with his brother's blood. The ground beneath them trembled, absorbing the sin into its cursed soil, and a voice not his own thundered from the heavens. "The blood of your brother cries out to me from the ground." The air grew heavy with divine wrath. The earth groaned under the weight of humanity's first murder, and a dark storm descended, the storm of sin's enduring legacy. The murder of Abel marked a turning point in human history, a moment that cemented the curse of sin upon the earth. Cain's act of violence not only took his brother's life, but also set a precedent for the struggles that would define humanity's existence, a legacy of conflict born from the first family's fall. What would happen as the Creator confronted Cain for his heinous act, pronouncing judgment on the first murderer? Could humanity find a path to redemption amidst the growing shadow of sin? Or would the darkness unleashed by Cain's actions continue to spread, consuming the world in its grasp? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this celestial tragedy will unveil the judgment of Cain, a chapter that will explore the deepening cost of sin and the Creator's enduring call for repentance.